This is something I've been wanting to make for a while. You guys might have guessed from my channel that I sing and I act and I do things that people who like to be in front of a camera or who are willing to put up with the frustration of being in front of a camera in order to do the other parts of acting and singing that they like, they do those things. I do those things. For a while, I was even teaching acting. I was actually really, really lucky. I had an amazing group of high school students who really pushed me to explain things that I took for granted into like really fundamental blocks. And I wanted to make one of them into a video. So I'm going to do that. If you hate it, I am so sorry. Then please tell me. And if you love it, then I might do other more things like this. Okay. Welcome to How to Have a Feeling for actors, and also for anyone who struggles with having feelings. We tend to have them. Some of us do not like having them. Some of us do not always recognize when we have them or push them down when we start to have them or only have some feelings and not other feelings. Point is, feelings are hard. But as an actor, it's literally your job to have feelings. And even though it's called acting, a lot of, especially the best cinematic acting for the camera, where it is so intimate, hello camera, hello, is not really acting at all, but rather just being a human in a set of imaginary circumstances. When there's a bunch of like technology and stuff around you that's distracting, but using your imagination to put yourself totally in the imaginary world, and then just being as realistic as possible, just being as human as possible. And so really good acting is actually just having actual feelings, but with consistency, so you can do it take after take after take, and with mental health for yourself. So what I like to do is kind of break down the fundamental steps of having a human feeling. So let's go. 1, a thing has to happen. Actually, this first step you don't even do. Something happens. Because if you really think about it, someone pointed out to me, if we really truly lived, all of us individually lived in voids where there was nothing, there was no one, nothing had happened, we didn't have chemicals in our brains, and we didn't have genetics, and we didn't have whatever. In fact, I mean, at that point, we wouldn't exist. But let's say we are a void. If nothing happens, then we have nothing to react to. We would have no feeling. There's no anger, there's no sadness, there's no happiness without something to react to. Even if it's in our own heads, even if it's a memory, even if it's very physically obvious, like someone slapping you in the face, which I really, really hope no one is doing that. Something happens. So that's always step 1 to having a feeling. Something happens. Step 2. You have to perceive the thing that happens. Because if something happens and you weren't there to see it, you're not going to react to it. You have to some way perceive it. And now, this can be listening. How many times have you heard acting is listening? This can be smelling, touching, seeing, that feeling you get when something happens behind you, but it kind of prickles the back of your hair, the hair on the back of your neck. The point is just, you have to have some form of sensing what happens, of receiving the information input. If we want to go with like kind of computer nerd data stuff, the something happens is new data, is an event. You have to receive said data. A lot of actors want to jump straight to the they express feelings part, but it's completely hollow if you haven't actually received the stimulus that would trigger your feeling. I mean, then it's just you being like, let me express, and it's kind of like trying to make out with yourself. It doesn't really work. It takes 2 to tango. So you need to be really receptive and really present in a scene, and probably in life in general. One of the reasons people will disassociate is a coping mechanism for when there's external stimulus that we don't want to perceive and can't handle. It's an actual safety issue. So I'm not trying to say like become super sensitive if it's dangerous to yourself. I'm just saying be aware of when you are receiving sensory input from the outside world and when you might have to say, no world, not today. So okay, something happens. We look, we perceive the something, we receive the information, we listen, we absorb, we see, we feel. Then what? 3, it triggers a reaction. Now, This is where it gets a little fuzzy. Which comes first, the feeling or the thought? Do you have a feeling and it makes you have kind of a thought in your mind that you react to, or do you have a thought as you observe this new information, this new stimulus, and the thought starts to set the ball rolling on your feelings? For everyone, it might be a little different. So these two steps, you might have to figure out what works for you. For myself and for a lot of actors, I have found in order to guarantee more consistency in my work and therefore more ability of myself to trigger the stimulus, my step 3 needs to be a thought. I have a thought about what I just perceived. And when I say have a thought, I mean really, have the thought. Take the moment, if you have the second, to see someone yell at you, see someone look at you like they want to kiss you, and go ahead and think, God, I hope this person kisses me. Or, oh God, oh God, oh God, please don't freaking get near me. Have a thought and think it. Let yourself think it. That thought will almost always involuntarily trigger an emotion because we're like preloaded instinct machines. I like to believe that instincts is this incredibly complex computational system we have inside that has been evolved for eons, and it can do what our computers actually can't do yet. And so let your instinct machine do what it does. And that's part of what will make you unique as an actor, is that your instinct machine is different than mine. So if you set yourself up with the triggers, something happens, I perceive it, I have a thought, you will have a unique, true only to you, only castable if they cast you, emotional reaction. So this is where techniques like Meisner or Stanislavski, a lot of these kind of modern realism acting techniques are super useful because they basically make you run emotional instinct drills. Like going to the gym. You just have to run over and over again what triggers my anger and then let yourself be triggered. You don't manufacture anger. You don't try to force yourself to get sad because look at how fake this is right now. No, instead, you actually just practice thinking a really sad thought and then just letting it come out of you. And trying to learn to be brave enough to not shy away from the camera when we're having the kinds of emotions that we don't want anybody else to see. So, be prepared, by the way, when you actually have these feelings, you will probably need to set yourself up with a little bit of get into it time, usually called prep or preparation in these different acting schools, and get out of it time. Don't feel like you have to prove you're such an acting machine, that you just are perfect and always on call and ready. You are a human. People are hiring you to be a human. Go ahead and be a human. Learn how to take care of yourself, because that's a whole other topic, but people might try to, the world might try to break you, and it's kind of your job to make sure it doesn't. Back to reality. The point is, you will get to do drills. You will get to know, what is my sadness like, and how is it different from other people's? What is my anger like, and how is it different? And how is it similar? What is my joy like? What is my sensuality, my desire like? What is my humor like when I get tickled in my funny bone to the point where I can't stop laughing like a person at a sleepover at 2 a.m. who had too much sugar? That's why you do so many repetitive exercises, like the famed, literally called repetitions, which I love. I roll my eyes, but I actually love them. You're kind of getting familiar with your emotional body, just like the way athletes get used to their physical bodies, and their unique machinery and abilities and inclinations. So that's the kind of training that you need to do around this work, alongside this work, hand in hand with this work, whatever you want to call it, because that's what makes you adept at emotional fluidity. That's also what allows you to kind of go to maybe even larger emotional extremes fluidly and authentically, because one of the biggest issues is people who try to, again, really, really show an emotional extreme without having fed into it the proper triggers and impetus that justify getting there. So, and then it does look forced. It looks phony, just as it would in real life. So basically, this is the part that takes the most practice. But the practice is done best if you set yourself up with those advanced triggers. Make sure something is happening and you always know what's happening. Sometimes they call that the moment before in your acting classes. Or it's your scene partner is giving you the something happening. It's in the script, etc. So you want this impetus, you want this perception of the impetus, the active listening. You want to be present and you want to not just like listen for the words so you know it's your line, but you want to receive, and then you want to react. And as much as possible, the more you can practice just letting the reaction kind of happen, the better it will get. If you have to, when you're starting, feel free to slow your instincts down. You can slow it way down, just like someone who's really learning proper form of like a tennis swing would slow it way, way down, or like just like someone who's learning the proper form of like a layup might slow it down and like really kind of identify all the steps that go into it. You are welcome to slow down. What are my triggers? How does this trigger, how do I feel it swell up in me? What kind of emotional steps happen before it comes out of me? And then eventually that'll get faster and faster and faster as you get the hang of it, as you repeat it. So don't feel the need to necessarily always be fast or slow or any one thing. It's a learning process, and hopefully you'll have a teacher who can guide you through this. But the idea is just you want to make sure in your practice, you're practicing being stimulated. You're practicing being triggered by an event, by an impulse, and that you're having a reaction to it. And then you can just practice a wide variety of reactions, a wide level of intensity. Can you do like a 2 of sadness? Can you do a 10 of sadness? You can test yourself and challenge yourself, but it's still coming from that place of trigger, so forth. So 3 for me is have a thought. 4 for me is have an emotion. As we've kind of discussed, the 3 and 4 will happen kind of instantaneously for some people, or they could be swippity swapped. But essentially, that's how I usually work it the most. And how my brain processes is something happens, I perceive it, I'm like, wait a second, that just emotion hit me in the face. So for step 4, have the emotion. You just feel it. You just feel it come over you like a wave. It should build out of you of its own accord, come from somewhere deep inside. You are just supposed to feel it. And then step 5, release it, usually in the form of an action. I've seen many a really great actor have a really great feeling, but it's all happening inside. And unfortunately, while that's great for real life, that is not great for having an audience. We want to be let in. We want to see the emotion with you. So there is a little bit of vulnerability that happens. This is also why it's really important to be in a very emotionally healthy place when you are pursuing your acting career. Don't be afraid to have a support network. Don't be afraid to get therapists. I don't recommend using an acting class as therapy. It may teach you about yourself and your emotions, but I still recommend bringing that to an actual therapy room and discussing and processing it from there. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But basically, the joke is it's a very selfish actor who has it all happen internally. It's great for you, but how's it for us? It's again, there's a lot of making love metaphors, and I really hope I have a mature audience. Don't be a selfish lover. Treat your audience to a good experience, right? Because this is the kind of creative exchange that's happening. But once we have an emotion, it is from the emotion that we do or say whatever we're going to do and say next. That's the funny thing. Most actors, when they're starting, they cut right to step 5. Because if you think about it, that's what we're given. In the script, we are given step 5, words to say or actions to do. And if the script doesn't give it to us, the director will. So somebody gives us kind of the answer, as it were. In real life, when we're really having a feeling, the action comes last because we have to have something and process it as quickly as we can, and maybe we're struggling to process it and it creates an emotional reaction, and we're not in entire control of our emotions because we're fallible humans, and all of a sudden words blurt out of us and we say something from a defensive place or from a happy place or from a scared place, or an action happens. We can't make eye contact anymore because it's too much. We literally disengage the space. We physically engage more. Our bodies and our words, they will happen from these emotions, and we'll know exactly what to do or what we think we want to do or what's going to happen based on all of the data input we have leading up to that decision. But with acting, you kind of have to basically solve this puzzle inside out. because you're given, this is what this character will do or say. And now you have to backtrack why. You are given the what and the how, and it is up to you to solve the why. You have to backtrack. What kind of emotion would lead me to that? What kind of thought trigger would start me down the path of that emotion? What kind of data input would trigger that thought, that would trigger that emotion, that would trigger that action? And then what kind of an event would I perceive to take me along there? So you're kind of going backwards. So this is why so many people just simplify it and say you have to understand the why of what you're saying. Because we don't ever say anything without a why, without a reason that we're hoping somehow by saying what we're about to say or doing what we're about to do, we can maybe just like a little tiniest bit make a little bit of change, impact something in our surroundings. So, yeah, when it comes to having a real feeling for the acting edition, that's how I tend to break it down into simplistic steps. And sometimes I have to go really slowly through those 5 steps, and then I kind of speed it up until it happens so fast that it's like moment to moment impulses. That's another repetition or exercise that you'll get to practice a lot in different acting classes, is once you have an emotion in you and you feel something, then saying lines after you already feel it. Then just practicing words or movements or doing things. Try to like think about something that gets you angry, and then try brushing your teeth and see how it's different brushing your teeth angry from brushing your teeth happy. So that's the acting edition. But what about like for the rest of us who just want to explore feelings? I think this still applies because, again, the goal is we're breaking down having a real feeling. In our real life, we aren't as conscious of all these steps because they're happening so instantaneously, and we don't need to be conscious because we don't need to reproduce these same triggers and emotions over and over again, and we don't need to know exactly what and why we're doing because we're not going to be asked to do it 10 times over in a 16-hour shoot day. We don't need to be able to do it 8 shows a week for months on months and months on end. It's not necessarily as important to control your emotions in the same way, but perhaps if you're wondering why certain things get you so out of control or do overwhelm you with really intense emotions, maybe it's useful to go back and look at some of the earlier steps. What was the thought that I had before or simultaneous with these emotions? What triggered that thought? Can I change something? Can I change my thought? Or can I maybe choose not to perceive something, choose to not engage with that? Can I choose to change my surroundings? Is it possible? Sometimes it's not possible, but is it possible to change my surroundings so I'm not around as many events like that? Which of these steps can you kind of alter if you don't love your emotional reality? So yeah, I'm one of those weirdos who tries to break down the very functional, basic human reality of having a feeling into 5 steps, because sometimes having feelings was weird for me. And so I felt better when I kind of broke it down this way because it made it make more sense to me. And I think maybe some other people are weird like me. So that's how I think kind of goes in our heads. And I hope that is useful for you in reproducing or just living your own feelings. Okay, thanks. Bye.